Hello, welcome back to the workshop. In today's video, we're going to modify a smart trainer to work with a 16-inch Woom kids bike. If that interests you, stay tuned. We'll get started. So it's Christmas Eve, and my wife wanted this to be a Christmas present for my daughter. I really should have hopped on it earlier. I waited till the last minute, so I'm hoping that this goes a little more smoothly than I think it will. So looking at it, I've got the bike mounted onto, this is a Ceres M2 trainer. It's designed to work only with 700C or 28-inch wheels. The manual or the spec sheet says it won't work with 29-inch, 650B or 26-inch wheels. I want to use it on a bike with 16-inch wheels. So the first thing I think we need to do is figure out how to move the resistance wheel upward or move the bike downward so that the bike actually contacts the resistance wheel. Once we sort that out, the next thing we'll need to do is come up with some sort of an adapter to support the rear axle. So this trainer does pinch in enough to carry the axle on this, but it's not really very well secured. So we need to come up with a way to secure that better. And then also, or lastly, we need to find a way to lower this so that when she's riding on it, she's not riding on it. It's not like a hot rod, way up in the air. So let's start first with what I think is going to be the most difficult problem to solve, and that's getting the resistance wheel to touch the back tire. The way this normally works, for the resistance wheel to contact the back tire, you turn this knob, we'll call it a compression knob, and what it does is it swings this on a pivot and preloads it into the tire. So this trainer is designed to fit 700C wheels, which are roughly 28 inches in diameter. So 14 inches from the center of the axle to the center of the resistance wheel. This bike, it's a 16-inch model, so it's got 14-inch rims, but with the tires it comes out to an OD of 16. So we have to move this resistance wheel 6 inches in this direction. There are a few ways we could tackle this. We could cut the trainer, make it shorter, and then weld it back together. We could make some sort of a crossbar that bolts in here and then move the wheel up to that crossbar. Or we could adjust this pivot point. I really don't want to modify the trainer. I want to be able to use this on other bikes as she grows. So I think cutting it or doing any welding or anything like that on the trainer is out. What I'm going to focus my efforts on is building a new pivot to move this whole assembly up that 6 inches we need. The length of this lever arm is fixed. It's part of the resistance wheel, so I don't think we can modify that. So I think we'll build an adapter that fits into this pivot point, moves this up, and then we'll put the new pivot point for the resistance wheel at that new location. So let's remove the resistance wheel. I want to take a look at how it mounts in this pivot. All right, so let's take a look at what we found. Half the pivot is part of the resistance wheel, and then we've got this half here with the tie down for the tension knob, compression knob. So the way I think I'm going to do this, I think I'm going to make an adapter that fits in here, something that bolts in place, comes up, and then replicate this bracket up here. So based on what I found in my scrap pile, here's kind of what I think we'll build. So I measured the distance between those pivots is 3.5 inches. So I'm thinking I take a length of 3/4 inch square tubing, cut it to that 3.5, and then I want the center line between there and the new pivot to be 6 inches. So I'll cut 2 new lengths of 3/4 inch steel tubing, square tubing, to whatever that length is. It's going to be 6 inches minus 3/4, it's going to be 5.25. So I'll cut 2 of those. And I'm going to use 2 side by side because I want this to be as strong in torsion as it can be. And then I'll cut another length of this 3/4 inch steel tubing for the top. And then I'll add some weld tabs to the end. And these weld tabs will support the resistance wheel. All right, so here's a better look at what we're making. I took this scrap steel out, cut it to length with a grinder, and then I used my milling machine to square up the ends. You're probably not going to have a milling machine. You don't need it. It's not important. Just clean them up with the grinder. This is the bottom. It fits into the frame on the trainer. This is the top. These are spaced to fit into the resistance wheel. And then I cut these to 5 1/4 inch to give me 6 inches center to center. So I've got this together. I'm happy with all this looks. I'm going to go put it down on the floor and I'm going to weld it together. So I got it welded together, but I realized once I got it on, I screwed up. So I intended for this piece to be back here to give me something to attach the tension knob to. Unfortunately, when I spin it around that way, the body hits this square tube, it won't go. It ends up sitting out here like this, and that's about as close as I can get it. So I had to swing it around this way to give me the necessary swing I need for alignment. But then we've got a new problem. There's nothing here. So I got to figure out, what I'm going to attach the tension knob to. So right now, this can pivot on that lower point, and I don't want that because I want this to be able to tension. So I found this weld tab. This is left over from, I think, my Atlas lathe project. I'm going to grind it down slightly so it fits in here. And then I'm going to do very similar to what Ceres did when they made it. So I'm going to use the original L screw. I'm going to run it through that plate, and then I'm going to add a tension knob to hold it firmly in place. So that will lock this down so it can't move. And then once I figure out how to hold the tension knob, when I tighten the tension knob down, this will stay stationary and this will rotate in this direction, giving me the necessary compression into the tire. So that actually works really well. It's going to hold this in place. This is no longer a hinge joint. So now we need to figure out how we're going to tension this. So I need to be able to apply force around this point, so create a moment in this direction. So I've got an eye bolt. I'm thinking if I thread it through here and then put a knob on top of it, so kind of like that, then I can tighten down the knob, it'll pull it in that direction and it'll compress it into the tire. But I need something to attach to the other end of this eye bolt. I've got some 1/2 inch rod, and I think I can bend this maybe into a U shape, bridge across here, and that'll give me something to attach this eye bolt to. So that's how that turned out. I was able to heat it up red hot and bend it into a V shape, and then I ground the edges so it would be parallel to the bracket here. And what I'm going to do is put it in kind of like so, and I'm going to weld it in place. Sweet. I think that works. Getting the ride height set was actually really easy. I removed the legs. All they are is 1 1/4 tubing. I had some out back. I don't know what it was from, but it's scrap. So I cut those to length. These were 6 inches long. I squished them in the vise, and then I drilled a hole with an 8mm drill bit. These are 6 inches long. They turned out to be a little bit short, so I made a second set that were 7 inches long, and that gives me just the right amount. All right, guys, it's me from the future. So I took this inside, I put it under the tree, and I thought, I ought to test it out before I give it to her. When I put my body weight on the seat, it immediately rocks forward like this. Taking a look at it, when I had the legs, the contact point on the floor is behind the axle. So effectively, I built a teeter-totter. So I let her know, and then Christmas Day I came out and I built new front legs for it. And what I did is I figured out at its original height where the front legs had contacted the floor. And then I made new legs so that contact was in the same position. I made these really quick. Effectively, I mitered a piece of 1¼ tubing, squished it together, and I welded it. But now it's very stable. I don't have the problem with it rocking or moving. So when you're doing this, if you're doing this, make sure that you don't simply cut down the legs. That won't work. You'll have to make consideration or some changes to get that contact point out in front of that axle. Amount of clearance under that back tire. So here's how that turned out. Once I was done welding, I cleaned it up on the wire wheel and I gave it a coat of black paint just to match the rest of the trainer. I added some heat shrink to the eye bolt so it's not metal on metal, and I cut it down a little bit so the threads didn't stick up so high. I also made a spacer, so I turned this on the lathe out of aluminum to give something for the knob to sit against when I tighten down preload. So now, once that's in and tight, I can use the knob to set the preload just like you would if this wasn't here, if you were just using it regularly on a 700C bike. All right, so I've got everything together. I've got the bolts tightened down. The preload knob is set. I connected the wiring. It's not actually hooked to anything. I don't have an outlet over here. But this is kind of how it will be when it's in the basement. So I'll route the wires through and I'll zip tie it in place. That way she doesn't trip over it. But it works really well. So it's 2 a.m. Christmas morning. I've got to take this in, get it under the tree for my daughter to find in a few hours. I'm really happy with how it turned out. I'm going to call this part 1. Basically, we got everything done to make the trainer work with the bike. Once she opens it and she's happy with it, we'll put it in Zwift, and then I'll do a second part where I talk about the software. So I do have one concern or one worry, and that's that because this tire is smaller, it spins faster at this point. So it spins the resistance wheel faster. And I'm worried that the software will see that and really crank down on the resistance. I don't want that to happen. So I think we can account for it in software, either in Ceres's software or through configuring the circumference in Zwift, but I don't know that yet. We're gonna have to see when we get there. So I'm gonna call this the end of part 1. I'll see you in a couple days for part 2, let you know how it went. Happy holidays, I'll see you later.